Hello, my name is Jesse Valentine, licensed graduate social worker in the state of Minnesota, United States of America. Jesse Valentine is the social worker who facilitates and organizes community programs and engagement services offered by the St. Paul Healing Center located in St. Paul, Minnesota. This content is provided to you by the Center for Victims of Torture Community Programs and Engagement Services. Today we'll present to you the first of a three-part workshop series on the topic of preparing for your asylum interview. The first workshop is focused on providing viewers with practical and accurate information about the U.S. immigration process for asylum seekers regarding preparing for their asylum interview and useful mental health coping skills and strategies to assist in the asylum interview process. Legal disclaimer. Disclaimer, this video publication does not provide legal advice. This publication and the information included in it are not intended to serve as a substitute for consultation with a licensed attorney. This video publication is intended for educational and informational purposes only and may not be current, fully accurate, or complete. Specific legal issues, concerns, and conditions always require the advice of appropriate, competent legal professionals. You should not take or refrain from taking any legal action based upon the information in this workshop without first seeking professional counsel. Medical advice disclaimer. Disclaimer, this video publication and the information included does not provide medical advice. The information including but not limited to text, graphics, images, and other materials contained in this publication are for educational and informational purposes only. No material on this site is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This publication is not meant to offer exhaustive list of mental health coping strategies and resources. If you are in a mental health crisis, contact your mental health provider or contact 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for suicide prevention and confidential emotional support. Call or text 988 or visit www.988lifeline.org. Always seek the advice of your mental health provider or physician with any questions or before undertaking a new mental health care regime, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have read or viewed on this publication. The content should not be used to self-diagnose or self-treat any mental health, medical, or physical condition. The use of this publication, preparing for your asylum interview before, during, and after, and use of the internet for communication with nonprofit agency, the Center for Victims of Torture, will not establish a patient-client relationship, and messages containing confidential or time-sensitive information should not be sent to nonprofit agency, the Center for Victims of Torture. Before we get into the content of our workshop, I would like to provide you with a brief history of the Center for Victims of Torture. The Center for Victims of Torture is an international nonprofit agency dedicated to healing survivors of torture and violent conflict. Since our founding in 1985, CVT has rehabilitated over 33,000 torture and war trauma survivors through direct healing, utilizing various modalities, including psychotherapy, group therapy, physiotherapy, massage, acupuncture, nursing and medical services, music and movement, yoga, and peer support groups, amongst others. CVT is engaged in post-conflict community building after some of the world's deadliest wars, including working in Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Jordan, and Kenya. CVT has pioneered research in torture survivor rehabilitation to better understand the effects of torture and how best to heal survivors. The picture of the yellow house on the bottom left is the St. Paul Healing Center, which was our first location founded in 1985. Since then, we have expanded in the Twin Cities and have a program called Healing Hearts. Healing Hearts is integrated mental health services for new refugees. Healing Hearts was CVT's collaborative project with M Health Fairview Clinic Roselawn and M Health Fairview Clinic Bethesda to provide culturally competent on-site mental health services to Karen refugees. A current program that is beginning and that is a part of community programs and engagement services is a football club for survivors of conflict, war, and torture. Football is a sport that relies on the connectedness and cohesiveness of the team. Each player has to communicate with their teammates and create bonds to play together in unity. Football is a universal and unifying sport that has the ability to bring together people and create community. At CVT, we believe in a co-creation model and that survivors should be a part of the planning process for community-based programs to be successful. At CVT, we recognize that healing takes many forms and plan to continue with innovative and creative approaches that meet the needs of the survivor community. CVT's core values are hope, human dignity, integrity, equity, and collaboration. CVT currently has healing centers located in Minnesota, Georgia, the southern US-Mexico border, Africa, the Middle East, and additional project sites around the world. We sincerely believe that CVT can provide care to aid individuals to once again live healthy, productive, and peaceful lives. Here's some gentle reminders. As we go through this workshop, it is important to remember you are a survivor. You can do difficult things. You know your story. There are people who believe you. There are people who love you. And there are people who support you. These workshops are intended to increase knowledge of the asylum process and how it impacts mental health and functioning. Information presented here is general, so in actual preparation for an asylum interview or hearing, you should follow the advice of your attorney. Now we will do a grounding exercise. Grounding exercises are a way to firmly anchor yourself in the present moment. Grounding exercises are helpful for many situations where you find yourself becoming overwhelmed or distracted by distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings. I'm about to begin discussing the complex topic of immigration and asylum. It is helpful to begin this workshop by becoming present in the moment, calm, and focused. This is intended to help reduce anxiety and overwhelm. This grounding exercise is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This video is around 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Ensure that you are seated or laying down comfortably before we begin. If you notice at any point in this workshop you are becoming distracted, emotionally activated, or distressed by memories, thoughts, or feelings, I encourage you to pause this video, take a quiet moment, take a few deep breaths to recenter and reground yourself in the present moment. Also, it can be helpful to rewatch this grounding exercise.
The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method is a grounding exercise that can help you stay in the moment and avoid negative thinking and worry. You can do this exercise anywhere, at home, at school, in the car, or even in the middle of a crowd. You can do it sitting, standing, or laying down. Counting down from 5, use your senses to list things around you. Make an effort to notice details about these things. This is how to do it. Start by breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. Then slowly look at your surroundings. Find 5 things that you can see around you. Maybe you see a colorful poster on the wall, the spider web on the bookshelf, the lamp on the nightstand with the red shade, the cat sleeping peacefully on the chair, the cactus on the dresser that has finally bloomed. Then list 4 things that you can touch. The warm mug in your hands, the soft comforter on the bed, the denim of your jeans, the scratchy carpet under your feet. Next, listen for 3 things you can hear. Maybe the ticking of a clock, the quiet hum of your computer, the sound of traffic from outside. Now try to find 2 things that you can smell. The tea in your mug, the clean scent of your clothes. Finally, list 1 emotion that you feel. This is a way to ground yourself so you can feel present in the moment and in control of your surroundings. Now you try.
Now we will move into the workshop material. Before we get started with the main content of this workshop, it is important to note that these workshops are intended to increase the viewer's knowledge of the asylum process and how it can impact mental health and functioning. Information presented here is general and meant to be educational and supplementary. It is important in actual preparation for an asylum interview or hearing that the asylum applicant should follow the directives and advice of their attorney. If the asylum applicant does not have an attorney, it is always advised for an asylum applicant to seek counsel of a licensed and practicing attorney. We're going to begin with some terms and definitions. Asylum. It is a form of protection which allows an individual to remain in the United States instead of being removed, which in other terms is called deported, to a country where past harm has occurred or fear of persecution or harm will occur if they return. Asylum seeker. It is someone who requests sanctuary, and this person has not yet been processed by USCIS. Asylee is a person who has been granted asylum by United States government. Affirmative process is when a person applies for asylum within the US or at a port of entry. This must happen within 1 year of entering the United States. USCIS is an acronym for United States Customs and Immigration Services. An acronym is an abbreviated form of a full word. It uses the initial letters of the word. Port of entry is defined as where a person can lawfully enter a country. It is usually an international airport, railway, ship dock, or highways along a national border. Defensive process is when a person enters the U.S. at a port of entry without proper legal documents, apprehended by the USCBP, or are referred to an immigration judge after determined ineligible for an affirmative asylum process. USCBP is an acronym for United States Customs and Border Protection. So an important definition to note is the U.S. legal definition of torture. The U.S. legal definition of torture is an act that causes severe mental or physical suffering for the purpose of getting information or a confession from you or someone else, punishing you for something you or another person did, scaring or trying to force someone to do something, or for any reason based on discrimination. Torture is done by or with the permission of a public official or government. It is important to note at the initial meeting of an applicant and attorney, the applicant should share with their lawyer if they are a torture survivor. If the applicant is unsure if they meet the criteria for the Convention Against Torture, the applicant should discuss this with their attorney. The attorney will work with the applicant to determine what is the most appropriate application process. Reviewing case papers and the evidence package. This should be done with your attorney. It is advised by attorneys that the applicant review the dates and places where an arrest or detainment occurred, torture occurred, and where and when release occurred. It is important to be familiar with this information, but it is not necessary or advised to memorize this information. Some of the documents that you may review with your attorney are the I-589 form, a personal statement, otherwise known as a declaration, an affidavit, and country conditions report. Review, verify, and update information with your attorney as much as possible before your attorney sends in the case papers and evidence package to USCIS. Some examples of information to verify or to update are the spelling of names, cities, a tribe you are a part of, ethnicity, and also ensuring the accuracy of other demographic information. Ensure that the applicant's address is up to date and can receive mail. Sometimes people live with others and are unaware that the U.S. Postal Service may not deliver mail if the name on the mailbox does not match the name listed on the mail being delivered. The I-589 document is the application for asylum and for withholding of removal. It can be used to apply for protection under the Convention Against Torture. You may file this application if you are physically present in the United States. You cannot file this application if you are residing outside of the United States. Being granted withholding of removal is a protection from being returned to the applicant's country of origin, and the applicant receives the right to remain in the United States and work legally. The applicant needs to work with an attorney to apply for a work permit before working in the U.S. Generally, applicants file an application for both asylum and withholding of a removal at the same time. This is not always the case, though. Follow the advice of the attorney assigned to your case. They know what will be the best application process for your case. Every case is different. Affirmations and declarations. Every application for asylum includes a declaration or narrative from the applicant detailing their experiences in their country of origin, reasons for fleeing, and reasons that they fear returning. Sometimes this may be called a personal statement or a personal narrative. These are all referring to the same thing. A narrative is the applicant's own words detailing their experiences that led them to seek refuge in the United States and apply for asylum. An affidavit is a written statement under notary public oath to support the truthfulness of an affirmation. An oath or an affirmation is when a person makes a promise that the statements written are true. The person taking the oath or affirmation knowingly and willingly attests to the truthfulness of a statement and is administered by a notary public official. A notary public official is a person appointed by a governor to serve the public as an impartial and unbiased witness. The notary assures that a document is authentic and can be trusted. An affirmation or declaration becomes part of the permanent official record and may be used in a subsequent proceeding or persecution. A declaration is a written statement that the writer believes are true, but the statements contained in the declaration are made without the writer being sworn in. So generally without the use of a notary public official, whereas an affirmation is done under a notary public oath. Affidavits and declarations. It is an opportunity to tell your story in your own words. Your attorney or a crime victim advocate can help you organize your story, but it should be in your own words. Avoid using canned language. What I mean by that is sometimes people in an immigrant community will help write the statement for another person. This tends to happen particularly in instances where the applicant knows very little about the asylum process and may have difficulty knowing whom to trust if they don't have an attorney at the time of their filing. This could be detrimental to the case, as sometimes community members will use canned language in an effort to cater to what they think USCIS is looking for. It could affect the credibility of the statement if it is not in the applicant's own words. During the interview, there is a chance the asylum officer will reference or quote the applicant's statements and ask questions. If the terms or words used are not familiar with the applicant and the applicant is unable to answer the asylum officer, it could affect credibility. We understand that many times gaining help from a community member is the only help that you may have. It is important to consult with your attorney after you have written your story. They will determine if what has been written will be helpful and useful for your case. Country Conditions Report on Human Rights Practices. The annual country reports on human rights practices, also known as the Human Rights Report, cover internationally recognized individual, civil, political, and worker rights as set forth in the Universal Declaration of human rights and other international agreements. Country conditions reports on human rights practices show that the applicant would likely experience harm if they return, that a person cannot rely on their country's government to protect them, and that it is neither safe nor reasonable for them to relocate to another area of their country. The Country Conditions Report provides up-to-date information about the current conditions of a country and can be used to corroborate the applicant's story. Not every attorney will use a country conditions report. This does not mean it is a bad thing. The attorney will discuss this with the applicant and determine the best course of action. In preparation for the interview, the attorney may want to conduct a mock interview with the applicant, review legal documents with the applicant, and discuss the use of a self-care plan. The purpose of the interview with USCIS is to show fear of returning to the country of origin because of past harm inflicted, or have good reason to fear being harmed in the future because of a protected characteristic, race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a social group. It is important to focus on oneself, not on others, when you are telling your story, and to tell your story in your own words. It's important not to memorize legal definitions or use legalese unless you are familiar with them and know the meaning and can speak to it during the interview. Most important things to do is to tell your attorney what will help you feel most comfortable during the interview with USCIS. Some examples of ways that an applicant can prepare with their attorney is to review the self-care plan, conduct a mock interview, review dates, locations, and times that are included in your evidence package, review other legal documents with your attorney, and to choose a place and a time to meet where the interview will take place. On the interview day, it's important to make a plan with your attorney to arrive early, to dress professionally and comfortably, and to bring a copy of the interview notice. What I have here is an example of an interview notice. Once the applicant arrives at the USCIS location of the interview, the applicant meets with the lawyer at a predetermined location. The attorney and the applicant will go through security. The applicant should bring a copy of the interview notice with them, although the lawyer will usually bring a copy of the interview notice as well. The attorney and applicant will wait in the lobby until they are called back to complete the interview with the asylum officer. Your wait time may be 15 minutes. You may get into your appointment right on time, although it is expected that you may wait up to a few hours for your interview, regardless of the interview time noted on your interview notice. If the interpreter is provided by USCIS, the interpreter will join the asylum interview by phone or video connection. If USCIS has approved of the applicant bringing their own interpreter, the interpreter should meet the attorney and applicant in the lobby and wait to be called for the interview. Who should be present at the interview? The applicant, which is the person being interviewed, who is seeking asylum in the United States. The attorney helps to ensure that the interview is conducted appropriately and that any legal questions that might arise get clarified. USCIS contract interpreters. USCIS provides interpreters in 47 languages. If a contract interpreter is not available, USCIS will either reschedule your interview and attribute the interview delay to USCIS, or at USCIS discretion, allow the applicant to provide an interpreter for the interview. It is important to review the guidelines on uscis.gov and to discuss the use of your own interpreter with your attorney before the interview day. In March of 2023, USCIS published a temporary final rule extending the requirement for certain asylum applicants to use a USCIS contract telephone interpreter. This is to keep the workforce and applicants safe during COVID-19. It is important to note that the attorney will not speak during the majority of the interview process. The attorney will take notes and will have time at the end of the interview to make a statement or add any additional information to support your case. It is important to know that if you do not remember facts, to be honest, it's important not to guess or fabricate information. It's important not to rehearse your story too much. If it ends up sounding like your responses are no longer organic or spontaneous, it could seem suspect to the asylum officer. Also, rehearsing too much could throw you off if they ask a question out of order, which is common during asylum interviews. Making a self-care plan. It is important to make a self-care plan. In this first workshop, we will focus on creating healthy daily routines. In the second and third workshops, we will discuss other areas of self-care, such as sleep rituals, eating regular meals, the importance of social support, religious or spiritual practices, if you happen to engage in spiritual practices, and we will continue to practice and learn relaxation and grounding exercises. Now we will begin to discuss daily routines. Getting up early in the morning supports the natural sleep cycle. The light and dark cycle of the sun has a powerful effect on the circadian clock. Sleep and alertness. The body's circadian clock responds to light as a signal to be awake and dark as a signal to fall asleep. It can be helpful to increase the amount of light during the day and to be more alert. Circadian rhythms are physical, mental, and behavioral changes that follow a 24-hour cycle. If you are someone who works second, third, or the overnight shift, this can become difficult to regulate a healthy sleep cycle. During the second workshop, we will discuss strategies that can help improve sleep for people who cannot sleep during the nighttime due to work or other factors. Eating a healthy meal to start the day supports having more energy and helps to avoid overcaffeination. Drinking ample water helps to avoid overcaffeination and also helps to keep a healthy appetite. It is suggested by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, to drink between 90 and 120 ounces per day, which is 11 to 15 8-ounce cups of water. It is important for a daily routine to have quiet moments throughout your day. This can be prayer, meditation, breathing exercises, or even a grounding exercise like the one that we did earlier, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is very important to include movement and exercise into a daily routine. Some examples are walking, stretching, football, running, yoga, aerobic and anaerobic activities. Aerobic activities are walking, swimming, running, cycling, yoga, amongst more. An aerobic activity is an exercise that increases the heart rate and oxygen intake, making your lungs and heart stronger. It is great for cardiovascular health. Anaerobic activities are football, basketball, weightlifting, interval training, amongst others. Anaerobic exercise is intense, short spurts of high intensity exercise. People with type 2 diabetes and those with retinopathy, which is an issue that comes from having diabetes, should avoid heavy lifting. It can cause a raise in blood sugar if your muscle cells use too much insulin to keep up with the intensity demands. Aerobic activities, as I had previously mentioned, are suggested for individuals with type 2 diabetes. Now we will move into learning about a relaxation technique. It is called square breathing. Square breathing is an exercise that involves exhaling to a count of 4, holding your lungs empty for a count of 4, inhaling to a count of 4, and holding air in your lungs to a count of 4 before exhaling and beginning the pattern again. This video is 2 minutes and 10 seconds long. Ensure you are seated or laying down comfortably before we begin. This is an exercise you can do anywhere at any time. Slow, stable breathing calms the heart, blood pressure, and helps to think clearly.
Take a moment to create awareness to your breath and follow along as we do 4 square breathing exercise. Relax your body and start by picturing a box with equal sides. Now inhale through your nose along the top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold going down the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your nose along the bottom line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold going up the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember to do this for at least 3 to 5 cycles. Visit our website and mobile app for more tools.
Thank you for attending workshop 1 in a series of 3 workshops addressing preparing for your asylum interview. This first workshop was focused on preparing before your asylum interview. The next workshop will be focused on what to do during your asylum interview. To view the second and third workshops, please go to CVT's YouTube channel to view. It would be wonderful if you could take this brief survey. This survey is anonymous, and the information collected will be used by CBT to learn, innovate, and find opportunities to continually improve our educational resources. At CBT, surveys help to inform our future work. We incorporate survey feedback into future workshop design and delivery. Thank you again for attending the first workshop. Please follow the instructions on the screen. The QR code will show on this video momentarily. Again, thank you for attending the first of the three-part workshop on preparing for your asylum interview. Have a wonderful day.